Welcome to Meeting the Inconceivable, a podcast exploring Zen koans, dreams, and the creative life produced by Pacific Zen Institute. Pacific Zen has a legacy of preserving and reimagining the koan tradition to meet our own times. With a lively community of artists, innovators, and seekers of all kinds that extends worldwide, our mission is to create a culture of transformation through meditation, koans, the arts, and conversations about the deepest matters. In this episode, Roshi Allison Atwill offers a Dharma talk on the koan case Baizhang's Fox from the Gateless Gate collection. As the case goes, whenever Baizhang gave a talk, an old man was there listening. When people left, he left too. One day he stayed behind. "Who are you?" asked the teacher, and the old man said, "It's true, I am not a human being. In a previous universe, in the time of a different Buddha, I was the abbot on this mountain." A student asked, "Does an enlightened person fall under the law of cause and effect or not?" "No," I said, "someone like that doesn't fall under the law of cause and effect. Because of this, I've been reborn 500 times as a fox. Please, will you say a turning word for me?" Baizhang said, "You don't sever the chains of cause and effect." And at these words, the old man had a great awakening. Exploring this case in depth, Atwill takes up the often misunderstood phenomena of karma and shows how it is often facing our particular karma that holds the very keys to our awakening.
For a couple of weeks, I've been reading various translations of the Book of Serenity. And one of the things that struck me about the koans in this collection was the way the experience of the student was included with a real feeling of tenderness, and also with a feel for what it's like when we've entered the path, but we don't know what we're doing. And we sincerely don't know what we're doing. And there's a sweetness with which the teachers in some of the koans meet that state of being, and also a sweetness with which we ourselves meet that when we don't know what we're doing or where we're going or how to live in our own karma, which seems to keep repeating itself over and over again. And we keep getting stuck in the same kinds of difficulties. So there's that. And then about a couple of weeks ago, someone asked me this question. They asked me, well, why would anyone, why would anyone do Zen? And so at first I started to think of it in terms of giving them, some good reasons why anyone would do Zen. That was the first place my mind went to. But there was just no purchase there whatsoever, and I couldn't even convince myself to do Zen. And then I dropped into something deeper with which I had some place to stand, which was, why did I come to Zen? What happened in my own life that I found a place here, and it has held me for all of these years, and I haven't come to the end of it yet. So that question brought me to a certain moment in my life and in my practice where I came to this one moment. I'll tell you the story later in the talk, where something in me just sort of stopped and stayed. and didn't rush off to try to make things better, or wasn't finding fault with the situation I was in, or with myself, or people I was with. And then I was looking through the koans, and this koan just came to mind, that it so beautifully contains that moment where you stop, everything stops, and we turn towards our life without yet doing anything, just turning and seeing the whole of it in all directions. And suddenly it's almost like you become the axis, of the center of the universe, where the universe is now, instead of going out and rushing around and trying to grab things or make things happen, I'm here and the universe is just turning and swirling around me. And there's a profound feeling of a silence. It's almost like the silence at the beginning of the world. I'm now. All the sounds are coming from, and I'm that silence. And so Zen had that feeling. And this koan, the fox koan, Baizhang's fox, it has a number of versions, and some of them are very elaborate. And it's a beautiful story where the person goes through, the fox, the wild fox, he goes through a whole transition, and there's a funeral and all kinds of things happen. But in this version, in the Book of Serenity, it's just a very short, clean version. And I want to speak to just one moment in the koan. So first I'll read it. Whenever Baizhang gave a talk, an old man was there listening. When the people left, he left too. One day, he stayed behind. And that's the moment. One day, he stayed behind. He didn't leave. Who are you? Asked the teacher. And that's the question the universe asks us when we stay. The old man said, it's true. I'm not a human being. In a previous universe, in the time of a different Buddha, I was the abbot on this very mountain. A student asked me, does an enlightened person fall under the law of cause and effect? No, I said. Someone like that doesn't fall under the law of cause and effect. Because of this, I have been reborn 500 times as a fox. Please, will you say a tuning word for me? Baizhang said, you don't cut chains of cause and effect. At these words, the old man had a great awakening. So that moment of one day he stayed. And in each moment, all of these are always occurring. Every moment in the koan, it's not a linear progression. Everything is happening at once. It's all happening now. So we're living out our karma, and we're also not leaving, and we're also the priest that was the abbot here. We're all the characters, but we're all of them right now, which is a very beautiful and strange aspect of the koan practice. So when I thought back, when this person asked me a couple of weeks ago, why would anyone do Zen? And I started to feel back into the time when I first came to this practice and what it was for me. And one of the attributes was I could feel that it was something I already knew. So it wasn't something like someone was going to teach me auto mechanics and then I would be able to make a decent living, finally. It was that it wasn't some knowledge that I was going to have to go and get. It was something I already had. It was already, I could feel it inside me. And I had glimpses of it. And it was something I knew even as a child. And that's true of everyone in this room. If you're here, you have at least some taste of, otherwise you wouldn't have turned and stayed and be here in the Zendo, which in a way, the sitting practice is not leaving. That's all it is, not leaving. The other quality is that it was the first time that I found something that didn't have an edge to it, that there was absolute, no matter what I poured into it, no matter what I turned inward or outward into the universe, there was no end to what could be discovered or what it could hold. There was no experience inside myself. There was nothing in my personal history. There was nothing in my future. There was nothing out in the universe that Zen was afraid of or refusing or it needed more of. It was this infinite field of freedom, I guess, in all directions throughout space and time. And even though I often didn't know how, like suddenly, I can feel that was true. That's the other thing, that it was true and not false. There's been one of the, which was, yes, it's true and not false. After saying it's not, no, and then it's true and not false. That we can feel that we don't have to I didn't have to try to make myself believe anything. There was nothing to believe. And I'm just terrible at believing things. This is not something I've ever been good at. I can't do that. And the other thing was, I could also feel that there was my usual ways of snowing people. Zen, it had no purchase on Zen. It just didn't. It could see through anything that with my charm or my skill or my intelligence, that I could throw at it. Also, the other thing I felt that there was no place to hide. And for me, in my own karmic way of being, that would be the thing I would do. I would just hide. I was really good at hiding. I was really good at looking like I was there, but being in a nice, safe little underground bunker, while the little fake Allison was in there doing all the things she needed to do. But Zen, there wasn't any place that I could hide from. And that was a relief, because it meant, it gave me the feeling that I was all the way in. I didn't have to earn intimacy. I simply had to stop blocking it, which was the thing I was doing. And so that was a much easier project for me, because the thing I had always been doing, my own 500 lives as a fox, I was continually trying to earn my way into connection, into love, into making myself be a perfect fox, a foxy fox, so that I could get the love I was so seeking. But this is this wonderful thing about karma, where you'll notice about your karma, where you'll set up a situation somehow that the thing that you want, that is going to give you safety or love or whatever the thing you think you need, you put it in a situation where you can almost get it, or you can get it for a little bit of time, and then it gets pulled away. So then you have to keep working. It's this perpetual feeling of effort that goes along. And it's something you're always gaining or losing. This continual, that's the life of a fox, right? We all know that life. That's pretty much mostly how we have lived our lives. And Zen was something where it was before there was gain or loss. That game hadn't even been set up yet. everything was already here. Everything that could ever be gained was already provided. Anything that could be lost, nothing could be lost because it's already here. There is no losing, it's here. There's nothing to lose because the only things to lose are things that I'm making up in my mind that actually aren't here. Right? So that was tremendously exciting to me as well, that there was a possibility of some other way of being. And then the other quality was it had something to the staying, that moment in the koan where he doesn't go and he stays. It has something to do with stepping outside of linear time, and you can feel that in your meditation or any moment when you're all the way here, you stay, even if you just look at someone's face and you're with them. There isn't a before and an after. There isn't anything to get. There isn't anything that might happen next. It's happening. So the quality of being and the being in timelessness, in the eternal time, in more like an axis of time than on the linear time, is a felt experience in this practice. And that's connected to not being in the world of gain and loss. They're not separate things. They're connected to each other. Because the world of linear time is a world of gain and loss. Oh, this is the other thing. I could tell that nothing else was going to help. That even if I made all the money, got the degrees, got the guy, my kids were they adored me and got their degrees and a good job. Married the person I chose for them. If I arranged the world exactly the way that I wanted it still wouldn't help. And I would still continually be in this state of, because then what I would have is then I'd have to maintain it, which is just, especially if you get everything right, it's just a massive job to maintain it. And so that, I think we come to that in various ways, that moment of staying. Part of that moment of staying is that we either come to it internally, that we just, in a way, we might just get exhausted from that perpetual striving. Or it might come from an external event where something gets stripped away and our capacity to do our usual ways of being in the world and earning our place in the world are simply annihilated. Like you get it and you lose someone suddenly, or you have a terrible illness, or you get fired from your job, or something like that happens. And you don't have it in you to do it anymore. And that can be a moment of staying, coming from the outside world. So karma, this koan is marvelous about karma, the way, and sometimes in Zen people think of, or in Buddhism, people can think of karma as something like, almost like I was raised Catholic, so a little bit like your sins, like you're being punished for your sins, a little bit like that, or a lot like that. And it's very easy for the mind to take our lives and sift them through for what we consider our sins, and then the terrible feeling of pain and loss and failure as a kind of penance, like when you go in the Catholic, you go and you confess your sins, and then they give you this penance to do. So your karma in a way is like a just punishment or something. But in Zen, the karma can be seen as my own piece of the world's awakening. And it's my own flavor of it. It's my particular material of transformation. You need something to burn. You need some material to work with. You need some clay and some fire. You need some torrents of water. And the karma gives you some purchase for your awakening to appear. So that's a beautiful thing to know about and not to be afraid of your own karma. And in this version, in the Book of Serenity, this is Cleary's translation. And there's a little commentary that comes before, and it speaks to karma. And the language is really fun. And it says, if you keep so much as a letter A, which is good because my first name is Allison, my last name is Atwill, so it's almost like you wrote it for me. If you keep so much as a letter A, I can't help it. You will go to hell like an arrow shot. One drop of wild fox slobber, when swallowed, cannot be spit out for 30 years. It's not that the order is strict in India. It's just that the ignoramus's karma is heavy. Has there ever been anyone who mistakenly transgressed? So they're just having fun there, which you might, as your own karma appears in the next week, and it will. You can rest assured. Then to begin to have a feeling of warmth towards it and play, and that it's here for you as the universe giving you some piece of your own awakening for you to transform. So the moment when this moment came to me, when I just stayed, how I first heard about Zen was I'd been practicing yoga for many years, and I sort of, meditation's sort of a sideline, too. But fortunately, I took classes which were really athletic, and they never made you meditate. So I never actually had meditated. And I heard about this magazine called Shambhala Sun, which I got a subscription for. And the very first issue that came to me, and this was 15 years ago, it had an excerpt from a book called Bring Me the Rhinoceros. And I remember reading that excerpt, and I remember laughing out loud and tears running down my face. And it was the experience of, I recognize this, and there's no limit here. There's no one putting walls up about being good or earning your way or any of that. It was a kind of wild feeling of freedom and an endless possibility there. So I was greatly encouraged. I got the book, read the book, and started working with koans with no instruction whatsoever. And then I went to I saw on the back of the book that this guy had written another book called Light Inside the Dark. And I went to my local library, which was an old California bungalow home that had been converted into a library. So it was very small. It was probably the size of this room. And they happened to have a cassette tape of Light Inside the Dark read by the author. And I was like, I struck gold. So I put the little cassette tapes in my car, and I just listened to them over and over again, kind of like maybe chanting. Sometimes you hear David chanting in the morning Kenten, and it was a little bit like that, where it was a kind of steadying feeling that this was real, that Zen practice was something real. And because no one else wanted this book at the library, I just kept renewing it over and over again. I think I had it for 6 months or something like that. So during this time, I had a boyfriend who, for about 7 years, we were together. And he was a wonderful boyfriend, except he had this one thing where he was terrifically jealous, just insanely jealous. And unfortunately, Santa Barbara is a very small town. And when I first moved there 40 years ago, I was 20 when I moved there. It was in the late 70s. And probably half the men in Santa Barbara were my former boyfriends. So it was one of my 500 lives as a fox. And it was just hilarious because whenever we would go out to dinner, we'd go to the bookstore, we'd go in these innocuous places, there would be someone I had dated, and I didn't know that this was a problem until it had no concern for me whatsoever. And I had been married for many years. I'd had all my fox lives. Then I'd had, the life as a wife for 12 years. And then got divorced, and then met this other man, my boyfriend. And so he would have a huge fit whenever this would happen, and he would break off the relationship, and we wouldn't speak to me for a month, and I'd lose 10 pounds, which was great. But then he'd come to his senses, and, I'd write these pleading letters, and I'd look fantastic, and he'd want me back again. So we went into this karmic cycle, like over and over and over again for 7 years. And what happened is I started to get more and more afraid. And because I'd placed the love of the universe in this one person outside of myself. And it became more and more threatened, which is this beautiful karmic tangle where I became more and more bound. And you'll notice that with your own karma, that instead of your efforts working it out, they seem to only bind you tighter, or they seem to you try to work out this relationship with your one of your siblings or your mother or something. And all your good attempts just seem to, make them more angry or more distant. So that's a clue that there's some sort of karmic something where my efforts they seem counterproductive, but actually they're just pushing you further towards your awakening. And then I began to really be I never would want to go out anymore. I just want to stay home with him, and have a cup of tea or something so we wouldn't have any problems. But maybe the UPS man, you never know. There's just minefields everywhere that I went. And then I found the Zen practice, and the koan started to work on me without really knowing what they were doing. I could feel that the space inside me was getting larger, and that I wasn't leaping outside of myself so often to go to try to fix things or get things or change things. And it was like I could feel this timeless openness in me, this something that was a refuge. That was the other thing. I could be myself and in the world without being in danger. That was the other thing. I mean, it was a true feeling of safety, one that was not conditional on circumstances. It was entirely my own. And so one evening we had a plan to go to this very fancy music recital in this beautifully splendid old mansion somewhere. And I happened to know that one of my old boyfriends was going to be in the audience. I just had heard somehow, I can't remember how. So I thought, well, I know I'll try something different. I will tell him beforehand that this person's going to be there. So he will know that I am a trustworthy person, that he can rely on, and the relationship I'll try to be the person he wants to be. So we're right before we go in, we're all decked out. I think he has he's got a beautiful suit. He might even have a tuxedo on. It was a very fancy event. I was wearing some beautiful gown or something. And I turn to him and I tell him that this person, just might be there. And he gets furious in the car. And we're in this enclosed space. And it was just like being in the meditation hall and the wild fox didn't leave. I felt like I was in a meditation hall in the car with this person screaming at me. And I just didn't leave. And I wasn't afraid. I didn't need him to stay with me. I didn't need to prove that I was a good person. I didn't need anything from the moment. And I didn't need to sever connection to him either. I just had this feeling of great warmth for him, a love deeper than I think I was capable of feeling previously for him, because it was always contingent on trying to get something. And we went into the recital and go with our tickets. And we just happened our tickets to be seated right next to the person. You'll notice this about your karma. So I think that's to say that this week, as we move through the days, that you already have that insight. That is you. The one who stays, the one who is here. And it's always there for you. It's always possible. You don't have to change yourself or what's happening. You simply stay with what's happening. And then your karma will give you what it has always wanted to give you, which is your awakening. So I'm going to read you a poem. This is by Mary Oliver, and it's called I Found a Dead Fox. I found a dead fox beside the gravel road, curled inside the big iron wheel of an old tractor that had been standing for years in the vines at the edge of the road. I don't know what happened to it, when it came there, or why it lay down for good, settling its narrow chin on the rusted rim of the iron wheel to look out over the fields, and that way died. But I know this. Its posture of looking to the last possible moment back into the world made me want to sing something joyous and tender about foxes. But what happened is this. When I crawled in through the honeysuckle and lay down, curling my long spine inside that cold wheel and touched the dead fox and looked out into the wide fields the fox vanished. There was only myself and the world, and it was I who was leaving. And what could I sing? Oh, beautiful world. I just lay there and looked at it. And then it grew dark. That day was done with. And then the stars stepped forth and held up their appointed fires, those hot, hard watchmen of the night. Foxes. Foxkarna.
To support these episodes or learn more about upcoming programs and retreats at Pacific Zen Institute, visit us at pacificzen.org. You'll find details on John Tarrant's Sunday Talks, our Open Temple morning meditation, and our Zen Luminary series featuring intimate conversations with scholars, poets, and teachers of Koan Zen. Thanks for listening.